Well, hey everybody. Welcome to another late night Thursday night. Uh, I'll warn you, this will probably be a pretty short one. I'm not doing too well. I just can't shake this bug or whatever it is, but I'm not. That's that. Other people have things they're dealing with too. I'm just saying. I don't want to just say we're having a short night and that's it. I want to give a good reason. Um, all right. How's everybody doing? If you're new, we do this every Thursday night at 11 p.m. Eastern Time. If you're watching later and you want to catch one live. And let's see who said hello already. Steven, Brian, Darren, and Dave, and Alan. Hey, Alan. Hey, everybody. So, Alan set us up on YouTube, you guys, or sorry, not YouTube, Reddit, you guys. And so I believe I have the link in the show notes here. Pretty sure I do. But in case I don't, just Google, you know, Reddit and Lovecraft Easing podcast, and that should get you right there. I would assume anyway. But I'm pretty sure the link's in the show notes. And I think it's a good idea Alan had because, social media is doing some weird things, it seems like the last year or two, and Facebook's trying to get weird now too with all kinds of weird ads and posts and all that stuff. So who knows what's going to happen with it? It's nice to have a fallback. Not that Reddit is perfect either, but maybe we have a little bit more control there. Who knows? And yeah, hey Chaz, good to see you. So, like I said, you know what? I'm going to start making up a code word for this since I'm either in chronic pain or sick so much thanks to my immune system because I really don't want to complain. So, code word fog bank. If I say code word fog bank, you guys know I'm not doing so great. And I've given you a good reason without whining about it. So, so anyway, I do know. I want to talk about. I never got into the TV show Firefly when it came out, or even years later. I just started watching it. I'd seen a couple of episodes before, but I just started watching it on Hulu, a week or two ago, and it's at first glance it's kind of hokey, but then it's a lot deeper than I thought, and I'm really fascinated with the universe of it too. For those who don't know, I'm an astronomy dork and astronomy geek. Notice I didn't say expert, but I know a bit. And so I'm always naturally curious in these shows how anywhere close to realistic they're doing space travel. For example, in Star Trek, even though they can go many times faster than the speed of light, yeah, it's science fiction, Chess. Um, it's basically a Western set in space, 500 years from now. That's Monty, Dave. Jupiter hung it up. He's in the house. He's, you know, I don't know. Might have to not pay him tonight. Um, so, like with Star Trek, for example, even though they can travel many times faster than the speed of light, somebody at some point must have remembered how huge the Milky Way galaxy actually is. And even at their speeds, they're basically in the Alpha Quadrant. So when Voyager gets lost and thrown to the other side of the galaxy, and they're in the Delta Quadrant, I believe, it to take them a hell of a long time to get back, maybe a lifetime. I forget how much. And yeah, that's exactly what I'm getting to. A Firefly was set within in a single solar system. So, um, just to finish up with Star Trek, even at this technology level, and as shiny as that future is, and I don't mean that the Firefly shiny, by the way. Uh, they're not even out of the alpha quadrant of the Milky Way galaxy, which is 100,000 light years across, and they certainly aren't anywhere near Andromeda, the next spiral galaxy, which is 2.5 million years away, and that's an awful lot of empty space in between. Um, so I'm watching Firefly, and I'm thinking about what Alan just said, because they're all in this solar system, supposedly. And they've got the core worlds around this, I guess, white star. And then they've got worlds and moons that have all been terraformed all the way back to what they call the outer rim. So I'm thinking, well, this doesn't make any sense at all. I mean, you can only have you can only have at most two, I would say, planets in the Goldilocks area of a solar system's orbit. Goldilocks is what astronomers call basically where we're at. It's not Mars, which would be too cold, and it's not Venus, or Mercury, which would be too hot because it's too close. We're just right, like Goldilocks. Um, so I'm thinking, how in the world? I mean, I know you take a lot of liberties with science fiction. I know that. I get it. And that's fine. But I'm just like, I need some sort of explanation for this. There's no way all of these planets are going around one star in the Goldilocks section of a system. And so then I started using the old Google. And if I can find this, yeah, it is. There it is. There are some really good maps out there, and I'm going to try to screen share now, okay? So here we go. And you guys be sure and holler at me if this does not work. I know it looks crazy right now. There we go. I think that's probably going to be better. All right, so here's a really cool map. Alan, I think you'll especially like this, but this is a really cool map of sorts of what they call the verse, short for universe. Well, it's not just a binary system. Now, you guys might know the nearest stars to us is a triple system, Alpha Centauri. It's 4.5 light years away, meaning if we could travel at the speed of light, it'd still take us 4.5 years to get there. And we can't travel anywhere near the speed of light. It would take us a lifetime just to get to the next star system at our present speeds. So that kind of gives you an idea of just how far away everything is in space. And that's just the next system. Anyway, Alpha Centauri is a triple star system. This is basically, you've got this white sun in the middle with planets and moons going around it. And then you've got other stars that are smaller orbiting the whole thing. So in other words, these planets, let's enlarge this. Can we enlarge this? Yeah, we can. So let's take this system here. Yeah, I am. And if I'm boring you guys, say so. I don't have anybody else to tell this stuff. Danielle just roll her eyes at me. And so would Logan. So you got this solar system here, right? So this solar system, the whole thing, these planets are orbiting this star, just like we're orbiting the sun, but at the same time, this whole system is orbiting the white sun, the central area. That makes sense. Now, is this possible? Really? No, probably not. Let's say extremely unlikely. But this is just, with that said, and with some artistic licenses, this became so fun for me to think about, you know. And so I started thinking, are they traveling faster than light? How they, and but basically what's happening is, um, I think, now it's never really specified, but I'm thinking, and I got more research to do, but I'm thinking from here to the outer rim is like, here we go. Here's where it is. Now, I don't know if yeah, I think it's a few hundred astronomical units. An astronomical unit is, think of the distance between our Earth and our sun. That's one astronomical unit. It's just sort of a shorthand if you're talking about distances within, um, a system. So I don't think these guys are traveling faster than light. Um, and it even says it right here. One light year, excuse me, is equal to 63,241 astronomical units. So, um, this view is you're looking down. So I'm guessing the whole thing from end to end is like 400 or 500 astronomical units. That's my guess. And that's not anywhere near one light year. So all of a sudden, this space travel, the speeds at least, become a lot more durable. Okay. And yeah, you got a great point. If Alan says if one of the minor stars had an eccentric orbit, goodbye Goldilocks zones. But this is one of the things that I love thinking about. So here we got, and there's a list of them too. You got this main big white star. You got a system over here. You got a system over here. You got a solar system over here. You got a solar system over here, and there are all these solar systems. I guess you could call them sub-solar systems, are orbiting the main star in the big solar system. The other interesting thing is that all the civilized worlds, quote unquote, with lots of technology and everything, they're on all these worlds at the core, what they call the core planets. And then you have out here where there are poor planets, and they're way out near the rim, and they're way away from the core and from the alliance, which just think of, that's Firefly's dark empire, more or less. And they don't have as much money. They're like, if you compare, let's say, what London was like with technology and everything, then maybe an approximation would be like, what was London like in the year 1890? Well, um, if you were in the American West at that same time, you wouldn't have access to all the technologies. Maybe I'm stretching that analogy a bit, but you get the idea. So, you'll see, like in these systems over here in the outer systems, you'll see, um, they've got horses and cattle and all kind of that. It's basically the American West. Uh, so anyway, this this is what I've been thinking about while I've been watching the show, and it's a pretty fun show. I like it. Um, and I remember that I had, um, excuse me a second while I try to do two things at once. There we go. Hi, Monty. I remember that I had seen Serenity, like right when it first came out, and I went and I actually had a few bucks to my name at the time. This is 2005, and I went and saw it in the theater, but I mean, I remember it being a fun movie, but I didn't have any frame of reference, which Serenity, Firefly only lasted one season, 14 episodes, although it's got a huge cult following. And then that was in 2002, I believe. And in 2005, they did sort of a sequel movie that came out in the theaters called Serenity, which is the name of their ship. Anyway, yeah, I've been thinking about that for a little bit. It's just fun to think about. And man, there's people got this all mapped out. I didn't even show you the really intricate stuff. Um, there's another there's another map that's black and white that I just found that I'm gonna look at tomorrow, and they've got all the planets listed. For example, blue sun system, they've got a planet called Meridian, which that's a never mind. Let's planet called New Canaan, and then it looks like they list the moons, and it's just really cool. Um, so yeah, so I'll read you one of the Firefly wikis real quick. This is called the White Sun System, the whole system, I guess, aka the verse. No, wait a minute. The White Sun System is the interior system, the core planets. Primary star system of the verse. At the heart of that system was the star known as the White Sun. The White Sun system had two gas giants, brown dwarfs, 14 terrestrial planets, 26 terrestrial moons, and one asteroid belt. Hundreds of millions of other objects in the local area. And by the way, it was discovered in 2020 in the fiction of the show. So anyway, it's not really feasible at all, but this makes it even more fun to think about. Oh, there are comic books too? I'll have to check those out. Yeah, thanks, Alan. Um, and if you're into this show and you're into this sort of thing, Google is your friend on this. There's a lot of stuff out there. I haven't been on for 3 hours. Um, I'm not sure I understand the question. Sorry. Um, oh, novels. Novels. Yeah, let's see here. Let me do a quick search. Firefly novels. Oh boy, at least 9 of them. Nice. Boy, they're not cheap though. 9, 10, 13 bucks. But, it's not too big of a sacrifice to make. Joss Whedon could use the money. I think he's dangerously slipping low to 400 million or something. Uh, oh, right. Hi, Russell. Hey, Mitch. Yeah, I get that email every day, the $1.99 stuff. I need to put these in there so when I got so many good books for $1.99. It's insane over the years, and then when I'm ready, I read it. All right, what else was I going to talk about? Well, I do know that hey, thanks to Alan, now I get this email once a day from Reddit with posts that fit my interests. I don't know how they know. Cookies, I guess. So here's one from 4 days ago regarding Supernatural. Monty, you're snoring. You're snoring, buddy. Yeah, there's some pretty cool So the title of this one is Wait, so is Dean considered an alcoholic? And first they laugh because, like, is this even a question? I mean, functioning alcoholic. Um, and then someone else said, but drug addicted also. There's several blink and you miss them moments when he's had pills that he took for this or that injury. No Advil is going to touch the pain like narcotics would, and the bottles had no label on them. Yep, but that doesn't mean that they're addicted to narcotics. And someone else brings up the quote, pep pills. I must admit, oh, he gives both of those to Kevin. Says something like the red ones are for pain, the blue ones are for staying awake. Not an actual quote. All right, so here's the really funny part that I wanted to get to. Um, oh, first of all, somebody says, that reminds me of Sam, always sleeping on the passenger seat, and Dean is still wide awake and just casually driving until they arrive at their destination, as always. And someone replied, his 4 hours, it makes more sense if he's a routine amphetamine user. Here's the comment I wanted to get to. This guy says, and I think it's a guy because it's Fun Guy 8618. I did a rewatch during a period when I was doing a lot of psychedelics, and there's definitely a bit of the Truman Show quality to it if you're watching with that in mind. Two guys on drugs driving around the country doing vigilante stuff and having this delusion that helps them cope with it. And they only ever hang around with other traumatized cultists who drink African dream root and believe in prophecies and do ritual magic to get high. The demons and stuff are just people super whacked out on whatever drug the cult sells, and they utilize hunters to assassinate troublesome clients. Vampires realize you can inject the blood of people who are given the drug and scared. Werewolves try to make their own drugs. I don't know where he's going with this. Their dad isn't real. Um, and then he goes on to say, yeah, oh yeah, we're talking about the Music Man. No, we just finished talking about Firefly. Now I'm talking about a funny post on Reddit about Supernatural. Uh, then he comments a little bit down. There's a lot of funny ways to look at Supernatural. Like they're just two serial killers who use costumes, props, and mind games to bamboozle their victims into believing they've just been helped. Um, so, anyway, not the case, but funny to think about. It's not labeled Elseworld, but you could call it a Elseworlds comic where Bruce Wayne is delusional and goes out as Batman, and Alfred humors him by Alfred's the Joker, and I think pretty much all the other villains that Batman goes up against. Alfred's using his acting abilities to um, create these characters. So, not my favorite version of Batman, but it's hilarious. It's funny. So, so I don't know. I don't know how much you guys have been thinking about this whole Neil Gaiman thing. I really haven't thought about it much. Um, except it's kind of hard to avoid if you get on even social media even a little bit. Um, and that's probably as it should be. But, oh man, speaking of, we were just talking about a Joss Whedon show. Same thing. It's one thing to turn out to be a complete and utter ass, right? That's not good. You know, all the things that these guys did to women and blah blah blah. But I think it's even worse in my mind when you hold yourself up more or less as, this example, this feminist, this this icon that women especially can feel safe around, that um, you know, I don't know. A long time ago, I had this thought that one of the worst forms of evil is that evil which is pretending to be good. And you know, the whole thing's pretty sad. Um, and I see a lot of conflicting opinions out there about what to do with the copies of his books. Um, I wouldn't presume to tell anyone what to do with them. Um, but I have seen even guys whose opinion I respect, and people whose opinion I respect, go like two different ways on social media. Um, someone will say, well, no, of course, just separate the work and reread everywhere if you want to, blah, blah, blah. And then I've seen others quite fiercely take the opposite approach and judge anyone who doesn't feel that way. Uh, I don't know the answers. I won't pretend to know the answers. But I do know that kind of a more or less firm rule that I've had in the past is if a writer turns out to be a total dick and he's dead, you know, you know, I'm not too concerned about reading his work or not because he can't change. Um, he's dead. He can't change. Focus on the living. If an author is alive and they turn out to be, a major dick like this, then I tend to not read their work anymore when I find that out. Um, but I don't understand it. I don't understand anyone who would treat people that way. I understand he had some sort of cultish Scientology upbringing. Correct me if I'm wrong. And that's gonna screw your mind up like crazy. I understand that, but I also understand it more than most, and it's not an excuse. So yeah, uh, I agree with what Chaz said a couple minutes ago. I wouldn't, read his stuff, but I wouldn't want to meet him. Uh, I think I more or less agree with that. And when I say I agree, I mean me. Everyone's different. I'm not going to judge someone else who looks at this a different way unless they're basically saying something crazy like, he didn't do anything wrong. Um, anyway, yeah, right, Dave. Lovecraft. Not. I wouldn't exactly want to have a beer with that guy, for sure. Um, and that's a great point too, Davey. Davey says the thing about comics, insofar as Gaiman is concerned, if you cancel his books, you're also canceling the art of his collaborators. Some of it amazing artwork. And I would also say the same thing about actors, uh, Davey. I mean, David Tennant is not really going to suffer if he can't do any more Neil Gaiman projects, but there are others who probably will. Maybe there's projects I know there's projects that were lined up, and I don't think it's a big stretch of the imagination to think that some of those lesser known actors who aren't exactly making millions are pretty disappointed that this isn't going to happen. Does that make sense? So, yeah, Polanski, that's another good example. Um, The Ninth Gate. See, right there, I have to say, my sort of more or less firm rule isn't really that firm, is it? Because I really love The Ninth Gate. It's one of my favorite movies. And not that anything that I enjoy has to be Lovecraftian. It doesn't. But I have thought watching The Ninth Gate, if the mythology in the movie weren't, uh, you know, if the big bad in there wasn't the devil, if it was some other unknown god of sorts, then it would seem Lovecraftian because you got this guy who's searching for the truth, looking for this book. I mean, there's a lot of Lovecraftian elements in there, even though I wouldn't call it a Lovecraftian movie. So, anyway, I think that I've wasted enough time on that. Um, I'll apologize again for keeping this short tonight, but ironically, I have a doctor appointment tomorrow, just a checkup, and I'm gonna have to reschedule it. It's just um, fell asleep in my chair, and I'm glad I set my alarm so I didn't sleep past this. All right, what else I got here? Hey, Frank. Dave says 2 commercials. Are you talking about tonight, Dave? And if you are, um, does it cut me off? Okay. I'm wondering if it cuts me off or if I seem to go right back into what I'm saying. If it cuts me off and um, how do I want to say this? Man, I am sick. If it cuts me off and when you go back to me, I've already like 60 seconds have gone by or something, and you missed what I was trying to say. Um, all right, I think I'm gonna rethink having the live commercials during the show. Thank you for telling me that. Let's. All right, I know it to myself. Dear self, stop live mid-roll commercials. Thank you for letting me know, man. Yeah, I want the best experience possible for you guys. Hey, Scott Thomas is here. All right, man. From now on, you guys won't have to deal with that. Thank you for letting me know. Thanks for the feedback. Seriously, I appreciate it. It's one thing if you're watching the recording of this, but live, I don't understand their thinking on that. Doesn't make sense. So, um, and Dave says, yes, there is a gap. So, yeah, ads not in live are totally fine. Thanks, Dave. I'm trying to get a separate small income coming from YouTube, but I won't do it at the sacrifice of the live shows. So, anyway, thanks for telling me about that. Wonder, and you don't have to raise your hand virtually, but I wonder how many people are, are listening. Oh, first of all, before I forget, if you're a $10 Patreon and up, we're doing the Friday night non-recorded hangout with the panelists and me every Friday night now at 9 p.m. Eastern. So I'll send the patrons a reminder about that tomorrow. But if you're listening now and you're a Patreon at that level and up, then now you know. Yeah, so please don't feel like you need to raise your hand on this. But um, I don't know how much I've said about this, but I've had a lot of issues with depression in my life. Probably, you know, due to childhood stuff, but that doesn't really matter. It doesn't per se why, I guess. It matters what I do to help it and to try and curb it. And one of the things I've learned is that if you try and think of it as, you know, you'll succeed with depression when you finally beat it, then you're setting yourself up for failure. If you're prone to depression for whatever reason, could a person beat it and be okay the rest of their life? Um, I don't know. Who am I to say? But I think in general, my experience is that if you say to yourself, I'm failing in so many words because I haven't beaten depression yet. I'm 42 years old or I'm 53 or whatever, and I still haven't beaten it. Um, I think you're being too hard on yourself. I think a more realistic goal is, hey, I'm going to keep learning my whole life um, how to better and better deal with this, how to keep it from coming back as often, or when it comes back, that it's as much. There are there's always therapy, but and I think another mistake is what I've learned is that if you there is no silver bullet. You can't say, well, I'm going to take Lexapro or whatever, and that's going to help me. Well, maybe it would, I guess, if somebody with mild depression. But if you got this huge black monster that's always trying to get you your whole life, you probably should take a multi-prong approach. And some of the things that have worked for me is, light exercise. Definitely, I take depression meds. Um, you know, uh, setting goals for myself that I'm excited about and doing them every day. It's easy to fall into a trap of, just you're in a rut. You're not really accomplishing anything. And I've been there in my life too. Um, and Alan's right. Anxiety can be a part of that or the alternate to that, you might say. I guess the bottom line that I want to say is uh, something else that helps is knowing you're not alone. When I was younger, I would occasionally run across people, virtually, like I'd be reading their book or watching something on TV, like a talk show on TV or radio or whatever. Um, and this person I thought a lot of would say, yeah, I deal with depression or I've dealt with it a lot in my life and everything. And there's a little bit of relief when you hear that, not because you want this person to suffer from depression like you do, but you feel like you're not alone. Um, so, uh, Kim, they're not going to lock you away and drug you to death unless, I mean, you could be in some sort of lockdown situation if you were suicidal, but I don't think that's what you're talking about. Um, saw a TV show one time. It was Law and Order: Criminal Intent, and the guy committed suicide near the beginning of the show. It was because he couldn't get his meds anymore that helped him. And the detective said something like, no matter what he did at that point, in, he was almost doomed because he was fighting chemicals. So if you're not fighting chemicals, Kim, that can be just a help right there. but you know, um, it's only one approach to it. And it can be frustrating because you get a therapist, and what if you get the wrong therapist? Not wrong in that they're an asshole or anything, although that happens, but just finding the right therapist for you too, and the right medication for you. Some medications that work for one person may not do so well with another person. So really is an ongoing process. And Russell is right. It's really hard to get held in a facility. You would have to talk about planning to kill yourself and have a plan and all that. You know, vague thoughts of occasional suicide. If you tell that to your therapist, uh, uh, most likely you're fine. You know, you're just being honest with your therapist. But I would say this to someone who's suffering from depression. First of all, I do. You're not alone. If that helps, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. And I don't say too much about it, but some days it's really hard. Um, but it is getting easier the older I get, and it's because I've been through all this stuff. I've figured out the right kind of cocktail that is helping me as far as depression meds. Um, the right therapist. You don't have to be in therapy your whole life, but you know, it depression meds, those are tools, okay? But then also tools, mental tools that you can get from books and therapists. Those are tools for your anti-depression toolbox too, okay? So, and don't overlook going for a walk, every day that you can. And definitely do not overlook things that you're interested in that, make your heart quicken a little bit, like, hey, dumb stuff like Firefly's universe, right? That's what I'm talking about. Grab onto it with both hands. And you're not alone. And last but not least, um, if you do suffer from depression or anxiety, um, I'll stop talking about this, Kim. I don't want to freak you out. Sorry. It is nothing to be ashamed of. It's just like Chaz said, I guess. Basically, you have a cold. Um, the there the mind body connection is more profound than I think most of us ever realize. And so, anyway, I've been wanting to talk about that for a while. Um, yeah, exactly. Something you look forward to every day. Something as simple as going out to get a fancy coffee drink. And if you work from home, obviously that's nice, or it can be, but there are negatives too. Um, don't just be at home all the time. You know, take yourself out to lunch, take yourself to a movie. Um, so anyway, uh, I've been doing better with that lately, and that prompted me wanting to talk about this a little bit. Um, and oh, uh, maybe don't be on social media as much because it is hard not to be on social media. It's hard for a lot of people not to be on social media and then unconsciously or consciously compare themselves to the life that other people are portraying, you know. Um, the fact is, We don't, it's not a zero-sum world. Somebody else's success doesn't mean that there's less available for you. And the fact is that when you compare yourself to another person, you have to remember it's always apples and oranges. You, because everyone, not only are they different inside and outside, but they've also been raised differently. They've also had to overcome things that they were raised in, or they've benefited from ways that they were raised. Um, you know, here's an example. You can't really compare, say, Joe Hill to um, Laird Barron, okay, or Joe Hill to John Langan. And what I mean by that is Joe Hill pretty much grew up rich, and I don't say that as a slight. It's just a fact because his dad's Stephen King. So I would imagine that Joe Hill's never had to worry about paying the rent while he worked on his first book or his second book or whatever, or sent in stories to magazines. That is not a concern for him. So how can you compare, say, Joe Hill to Paul Tremblay or Joe Hill to Laird Barron, who's, I guess Laird's a good example because he had a very different upbringing. Um, if Joe Hill's selling more books, well, maybe Joe Hill had more advantages. And that doesn't mean that Joe Hill is not talented. It doesn't mean that at all. He's massively talented. But a lot of people are massively talented that didn't have the advantages that he had. So that's just a very simple example on, I can't compare myself to him or anyone. Um, and I know this is hard to do, but if you try not to do that either, um, I think you're going to be a lot happier, and less social media helps with that. So um, get your dopamine somewhere else. Anyway, I thought this was going to be a short one, but I guess I was. Hey, night, Scott. I guess I was talkative. Um, However, I am going to go to sleep. I'm going to go to bed. Thanks for spending part of your Thursday late night with me, guys, and we'll see you on Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern with uh, Simon Stranzis. So, good night, guys. Have a good one.